Okay, so we're talking about metamodernism, the future of theory. Jason Storms, and we're on chapter 1. We've already discussed the opening. Now we're perhaps, I think, just from the pre-discussions that we've been having, we're in slightly different places. I've only read up to the end of chapter 1. Jermaine, I think you've read the whole book, but a while ago. Brock, you've read the opening and a little bit of chapter 1, so we're all in sort of slightly different places, and I personally think that's fine. I can begin with what I think. Well, before I say anything else, one of the kind of themes of these sessions has been like trying to, if we can, fold in a little bit of art or creativity or something, turn up with a bit of something. I haven't been able to finish my thing, but I've got something planned. And so what I might do is do that and then squish it on the end of the video, or at the beginning of the video or something, or in the middle somewhere. And Jermaine, you showed up with something. So I think we should start with that, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Do you want to show us what you've got? And
it's super basic. I mean, don't expect anything in particular in it.
Yeah.
That is my encompassment of the chapter.
Great. So it's a square colored in with like an egg oval shape, empty space in the middle. Yeah. Now I'm reminded a little bit of one of the things I brought last time. Is it the same? Is there a similar kind of sentiment to that, or is it different? Or do you want to talk through what you?
I can't fully remember what your one was last time, but I can talk through this and then you can compare and contrast with yours.
Sure.
So I guess this for me just sums up what meta realism is. In that, what in my rereading just now, I realized what I thought it was and looking at the negated. So this is the thing. This would be the thing that exists, that we would say exists perhaps in this, if this is the frame and this is just got the painting, then this is the thing that exists. But it only exists by the negation of the space around it, or vice versa. And yeah, so it's like a kind of a affirmation by negation, as Dixon puts it. And this in the like, so but also, so this is, if this is the real, then this would be the not real, right? But at the same time, the not real, we can see, does have bits of the real in it, because it's not properly, it's not properly colored in.
Yeah.
So there's actually modes of real and modes of existence of what is real and not real here. And I just noticed the boundary. I drew it as a very, so the boundary is probably the thickest thing compared to anything else. But that would also be a mode of the real as well. Like if we zoomed in on it, perhaps you would see more of this. So it would look like that little gap bit there, but all over. So just from the, that's my thought. And so it's kind of saying, not what is real and what isn't real, but that what is real is defined by what isn't real. So you might as well look at what isn't real as well and contextualize.
Because in the chapter, they talk about socially constructed reality as compared to realism. And at first, when we first look at those things, they see the difference between the two of them seems to be quite obvious, right? It's like, well, yeah, there's some things we kind of imagine, and they're different to, like, I don't know, like a rock or a table or something that's kind of out in the world somehow. But when you try and actually come to articulate the differences between the traditional real compared to the socially constructed real, the boundary between those two distinct things seems to break down a bit, right? So, for example, you might find that so if you take something like a table, like it has a physical reality, but then it also has a projected and imagined and humanized reality, which is some sort of object on which you put human things that fit within the human frame and the human worldview might sit on top of. So to what degree is the table a real object, and to what degree is it socially constructed, right? Because we all look at the table and go, there's a table. The table has a function, and you place the thing on top of the table. So it simultaneously is a real object, and it's also a socially constructed object. And there are a number of ways in which that's true for everything we experience, right? So what was coming up for me was reading it was like, even, I mean, one of the places where realism's really leaned into is in science, right? It assumes that there are things that exist out in the world, and one of the ways in which it works is by almost setting up experiments which are designed to disprove whatever it is people think about it, and it's only on the basis of whatever the theory is. It's only it's only as far as yes, yeah. Go ahead. Well, you go ahead, Brock.
Oh,
what's going on? What's going on?
All right.
Sorry to. It just felt like
no. I was just trying to help you. I was just trying to help you with the word, not jump in.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I just. I'm still reading through the chapter, and my background is in these kind of realism kind of domains. But I just never. What's that?
How can you tell us a bit more about your background? Because how it's about.
Well, I mean, I'm a computer engineer. I'm an entrepreneur, and I studied a fair bit of physics in school, and it just, I guess, especially bridging back to some more human domains, practical human domains through entrepreneurship. In this sort of, the table has these multifaceted kind of realities. That just sounds like many worlds in so many ways, or like micro macro state of a system. It's like hard for me to understand exactly how science has kind of isolated that human piece of these things, because it's just another kind of causal structure you could describe. It's not causal in the way that's nice and clean and measurable in the same way.
Yeah.
But we definitely do things for reasons. Like the reason that the table has that socially constructed reality is like stochastically emergent from like our culture, or some similar, our relationships with each other in the world, and the way we act together. And so that seems like a perfectly valid thing to study, or to like say is real. And so, yeah, I'm trying to understand where these boundaries are that people have drawn, that they just seem a little bit silly, kind of, to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I think one of the ways in which Jason kind of points to that, I'm not sure, forgive me because I might do this from time to time, but I'm not sure if it's in this chapter, but he does point to the fact that social construction need not necessarily apply to only humans. And so for
Right.
this, I want to think of the Amazon rainforest. No, we wouldn't say that Amazon rainforest is socially constructed. And yet at the same time, we do know that humans in the Amazon rainforest would travel along certain paths, which animals have probably traveled along, just because it's a natural, easier path than going through the overbush. And so that means that path becomes socially constructed, but also humans would eat fruits and spit fruits out here, which means that there would be fruit trees would grow up along these paths. It would just seem really abundant. So it's very difficult to say that the Amazon rainforest is not socially constructed and is, completely natural. At least when it comes to animals, let's not talk about plants in the way that plants and fungus are symbiotic and they communicate together. Let's forget about that. Or the way that it's been shown that just the significant groupings of forests and plants can affect weather systems. Let's forget about that as well. Just go to the animal kingdom and you can see that, to say something is so, even the table is a natural thing, right? It's made, so it's like a kind of natural bit. I think this is where the point is. It's mind dependent. The table is still mind dependent because it depends on the mind to exist. And I think this is the ontological, or the being, or how it came to be, how the table came to be. It's still mind dependent. I think that's also interesting, this whole distinction. I think that's where most of what he's saying is where most of the distinctions and problems come from, is that mind dependence or mind independence. Is the universe mind dependent or mind independent?
Yeah. So one of the things that was going on for me as I was reading it, right, was I had so there was a couple of little stages that I can remember. And the first was like, there's a thing about the negation or the negative. So it's like, if there's a mountain there, right, well, we have the tools potentially to destroy the mountain, right? So even though that thing's been there longer than humans have existed, and you might argue that it's real somehow in a non-socially constructed way, our decision not to destroy the mountain, to nuke it into nothing, means that its existence is dependent on socially constructed reality. And then the other thing that came to me as I was talking about that was like some kind of science fiction future, which was like, at some point in a million years, a billion years, I don't know, if we manage to survive at least this stage and all the other stages that we might go through as a species, and we do the thing of, coming to dominate an entire galaxy or use all of the energy like that's produced by a galaxy, it's almost like there's a potential into the future of every single thing becoming a socially constructed reality in the same way, right? Like, if all of humanity made the decision to work on getting out into space and dominating space nature outside, if we were to make that choice, then we could do it. Right now, I don't know whether we could or not, but there's certainly the potential for that. And so this distinction between mind and socially constructed reality and some other external realism more and more begins to dissipate, even into the future. So now what's come to me just now on the back of that is I'm wondering if there are certain rule sets or certain things that are truly non-negotiable from a human perspective. Like, time seems to move in one direction, right? So like, is that rule a genuinely realism, or we can't travel faster than the speed of light? The degree to which that's there's a concreteness maybe to that, I don't know. But
the relativity of time and our experience of the relativity of time will come into here, which Brock could probably speak on. I just also want to add memory, hindsight, and imaginations of the future, and how we can recreate our memories, and how this kind of, so there's this simultaneous, I can live the past and the future at the same time, and in fact the past and the future are in the present. Time relativity very interesting.
Mm.
Even in the sense of just a lifetime of how, you know, time seemed to change. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think on this, will we not like go to the stars thing
Mm.
and dominate the galaxy and this sort of thing. Um, and the mountain.
Mm.
There's a big, big, big mountain out there,
Mm.
right in the middle of our galaxy. Uh, Sagittarius A star. It's a giant black hole.
Mm.
Would be great to get all that energy. Um, there's a moon a little closer. Could go mine it. I'm sure we'll do some of those things in the short term. Um, I think that we will have a similar kind of uh, we'll find, we find this chemical that's not everywhere that powers everything, and oh, it's not in the mountain. Well, there's other things in the mountain that are useful, but not that uh, you know, liquid gold stuff that makes motors move. So who cares about that mountain? Um, uh, and the subsequent kind of unfolding mind driven thing. Um, I just don't see like expansion and domination or mastery in some sense as like a like obvious endpoint. Um, Something maybe more a little more like stewardship or something like that is probably more likely, where we're more interested in seeing what reality does than trying to dictate what it does exactly, because we won't be able to predict it. It's fundamentally kind of unpredictable. So it'll be kind of more interesting to just see the story in some sense. Um, and so maybe that's it's like a similar sort of socially constructed thing about time is, um, I mean, if you don't study any relativity or anything like that, then or you talk to somebody that's not studied anything like that. Of course, time is linear. Of course, it's today. It was yesterday. It's going to be tomorrow. What are you talking about? What else is there? And if you talk to that person and ask them, you know, has time ever flown by for them or slowed down, and they say yes, of course. And so you could imagine other people having a similar experience. Yes, of course. Maybe not at the same time as you. Yes, of course. Different. So you don't have any kind of physical now in relativity. There's time dilation and varying geodesics through space time, and so there's a similar kind of thing happening through social reality, right? Where some people are speeding up, some people are slowing down, and it's not clear exactly what time is completely or how it works, in the realism camp. But there's definitely a lot of interesting theories there that are being explored all the time. Specifically, there's a new theory. It's not really new, but active inference that's kind of maturing in the last couple of years, and connecting perhaps a lot of things. Um, that says that it's well, there's many theories, but just that the future does have some sort of, at least at a quantum level, some sort of kind of back pressure, some sort of wave state evolution to the present. That it's more, if there are futures and pasts and whatever through this sort of space-time geodesic landscape at the same time, right next to each other, then wouldn't that mean that, this future that's right next to us and this past that's right next to its future, don't those things affect each other? No, they don't. Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one. But no, they do. Okay. Then why couldn't that be like generally the case, that kind of the future and the past, the present is more like some pressure between the future and the past. And again, back to social construction of that, like what's going to happen in Russia and the Ukraine right now? We don't know. But I can tell you what, that's definitely going to affect what people think is going to happen, is definitely going to affect their decisions and what they socially construct together, right? So yeah, it's just it's kind of an interesting question, or an interesting line to draw there. Again, for modern, postmodern sort of realism, anti-realism, all of this, it's just, there's a lot of ways that it just seems like the same thing.
Yeah. There's the whole, people say time is not an illusion, but it's like, I'm not sorry, people say time is an illusion, but it's like, okay, if it is an illusion, then it's a real illusion. like, like, I think this is like the modes of reality, right? It's like, well, okay, maybe it is an illusion on some levels, but at a deeper level, it's not an illusion, because we can all sense it. I've only done this, so I've done this. Don't know if you can see the past on one side, the future on the other side, and then bringing pressures onto the present in the middle, and the co-creation of the present. I have been known to say that the past is nothing and the future is nothing, and all there is in the present. And I'm now thinking about what I was saying, and be a bit more concrete. I think what I'm referring to in that sense of nothing is the meta nothing. It's like the past. This is okay. Sorry, I'm just understanding what stuff I've written. So when I talk about like meta nothing, I'm talking about a mode. It seems like it's non-existent on one mode, but actually on another mode, actually deeper than that. It's not something, and so it deserves investigation. And the same thing can be said about the past and the future. It's valid for me to believe that the past and the future don't exist, and all I have is the present, and that my ideas and our ideas of the past and future impact what I am in present. And so that helps me understand that the past is not gone and it's still impacting me now, so I need to deal with it. It makes me understand that the future is not here yet, so any plans that I make, I need to deal with it in the present and make sure that the present brings it into fruition. But then it does more than, I can't remember now, I've lost my train of thought, but it does more than that. It's worth investigating what my constructions of those things are. Just because it's nothing doesn't mean that, okay, I have to worry about it. And I've never made that clear. So it's really important to actually bring those things in and actually look at what these nothings are. This is maybe an underlying point of what Jason is saying, is like, look, what are we saying doesn't exist? In what way doesn't exist? To what extent doesn't exist? And these are, for me, more meta-modern questions than say, is time real? So I'm saying, to what extent is it real? Is I don't know, is race real? Well, no, to what extent is it real? Is race real? Well, to what extent is it real? And when we do this, then we can really actually start to break down and investigate things. The only other thing I did is I did a little drawing. I think on the whole case of stewardship versus domination, I think in our society everything is about mastery. Even, you know, I'm quite a fan of mastery. I want to master my crafts that I'm doing, and at the same time, there is also this seemingly opposing view of harmony and being harmonizing. So one worldview is, you could say that Western worldview is domination, the African worldview is harmony. You could say it. Like, it's just a really loose. Maybe it's better to say a scarcity mindset would be domination, and the abundance mindset would be harmony. However, how can we bring those two things in together? What stewardship requires a measure of domination. When I say domination, I think we need to decolonize kink, because dom and sub and dom are used quite often in those, and I think that needs to be decolonized. What we mean by domination is the ability to lead and to direct and have someone follow. You know, instead of domination to submission, it's really about a leadership and a follower. And so, in order for stewardship, I have to both lead and follow, because if I'm going to be a steward, it's like, okay, I need to see what my sheep need right now. So I have to follow their needs. They don't want to stay here where they've eaten all the grass. They want to go to the next pasture, you know? Yeah, so I'm going to lead them to the next pasture by following what they need, you know? And I feel like having something about this, because and my point is, my real grounding point is, I think if we fail to use both, and then we will fail with the power of the black hole in the middle. We won't be able to do that. What I call the Earth Seed Project, well, what Octavia Butler calls the Earth Seed Project, as Earth being the seed to fruit the stars. It won't come about. However, if I'm only seeking harmony, probably won't come about either. I'm starting to question the idea. Sorry, going off topic. I'm starting to question the idea if we were just to live in harmony with just the abundance mindsets, whether we would survive. Because when the ice ages come back about, there's massive die-offs, you know, and so we probably could do with technology. There's a point of view that the Earth is a living organism, and everything that lives on it is part of it. And so once the dinosaurs got wiped out by the asteroid, the Earth sat there thinking, okay, how can I deal with these asteroids? I need to do something, and the dinosaurs couldn't do it. I need something that's less harmonious with me, baby, and will take advantage of what I've done, but will protect me in the long run, you know? Yeah, so I think maybe we need to combine these things. Yeah, rant over.
Yeah, there's wow. I mean, there's something about fittedness coming up for me regarding this, and like the thing about the sheep and notions of will, right? And if the shepherd isn't fitted to the needs of the sheep and the needs of the grass and the needs of the wider environment, then the shepherd will die, right? So that, again, it's now like what I was saying earlier about our decision not to destroy the mountain is the thing that allows the mountain to exist. What's also true is that our decision to not heed the warnings of the mountain, right, in whatever shape that mountain as a metaphor comes to us, right, whether that's the mountain of needing to feed one's family with the sheep, or whether that's the mountain of going to the center of the galaxy and capturing all the energy of the black hole, like whatever the mountain is, if whatever we do doesn't fit with and isn't embedded within the constraints laid out by the universe, then we don't get to be anymore. So again, it's another way in which the notions that we're talking about, there's a kind of inversion, but the same is still true, right? Which is that there isn't really a dichotomy between realism and socially constructed reality, that the two are kind of interpenetrating and need each other. So that entire argument, I don't know what it's there for, which I think is perhaps the thing that's raised by Jason. Like, what are we doing with that? Like, what the fuck is that? Why are we? But I think it also it links back a little bit, perhaps brought to your entrepreneurialism piece and like invoking when Jermaine and I got onto the economics and the market, and so one of the associations I have with entrepreneurship is it's obviously linked to capitalism and that, so that's why that triggered that little link for me. But this rationalizing for like, why are we doing what we're doing? And I think there's something in the academy which Jason's alluding to, which is that these silos and these reasons for disagreement seem to want to emerge from as a result of market forces, right? So people need to believe that the thing they've been studying and working hard on and have spent the past 30 years of their life engaged with, they need to feel like they actually exist in some way, right? And so when they start noticing that right, I'm a lecturer, and what do I lecture? I lecture music, right? If I discover that music doesn't exist, right, in the way that I believe it, as a distinct and separate thing to say dance, or a distinct and separate thing to say art, right? Like then that threatens my livelihood, right? So that, again, that's embedded in a biological need. And of course, just to point on an example of this, as links perhaps to what you've been saying, Jermaine, Black Metamodernism, is that one of the things that I did some reading recently, and one of the things that came from that was that there are certain African musical traditions which, if you were to say that you can't dance but were a musician, they just wouldn't accept you like that. What do you mean you can't dance? Like, dancing is as much an innate part of what constitutes music in those certain traditions as, sitting still at a piano and making music, right? So the whole thing that I've been led to believe, right, which is you have music and then you have dance, and they're two separate disciplines, and they're somehow, there needs to be an antagonism between those two disciplines in order for me to make my bread, right? Then the degree to which I'm attached to that is a degree to which I'm going to try and have arguments with people about, no, what the true music is really this, right? And it's not that, and yeah. And yeah, so I think that there's underpinning a lot of the friction is the economy, and it's individuals' value of themselves, each other, whether their mortgage is going to get paid, whether they're going to be able to eat food. So there's quite an important I think that's the thing that's going to need to be resolved for these stupid arguments to not keep popping up, right? And unless that's resolved, then people aren't going to feel comfortable with letting go of their field, or being open to the possibility that they're talking shit and have been for 40 years, I avoid all that by saying consistently I don't know anything and that I talk bullshit. Like, that's that's my own little, like, that's just how I deal with it. But yeah, tricky.
Well, I I agree with that sentiment. I just don't want it to self-deprecate, but at the same time, I'm thinking, well, how is it not self-deprecation? Because bullshit is actually fertile. You spread that manure, you can get better grass for your sheep the next year round. So
right.
Yeah. I've wondered, because when you're talking about that and how the market impacts, how the commodification and how the reliance upon our ideas for money, how that ties us then to not being able to change our ideas. And I'm just thinking, because there are lots of the foundations of Western worldview which can be looked at in this sense of as a false dichotomy, and people just will not accept it for this reason. And I kind of wondered, why did Jason spend so long on meta-realism, but not on any of the other parts? Sorry, as I've read, not on other bits, like transcendentalism or I don't know. There's lots of other bits that he could have looked at, and I haven't worked out why he did that, why he left the work to be done for everyone else. I feel like he's perfectly capable of doing so, and it just came to me while you were talking that perhaps this is the root ground of it all. Let's take transcendentalism, for example. It would be to say that to say I'm a transcendentalist would be say that would be to say that transcendingness, I'm just gonna call it that, will exist, right? Yeah, I'm saying that exists, but then that also points to something that doesn't exist. What am I saying that doesn't exist? I'm saying that the imminent, that what is already here doesn't exist, I'm saying that things come out of things. Things aren't just there already, they come out of things and they weren't there before. And so it just points straight back to it. And I feel like I can't see it in my head now because I can't. I know there's lots of other things like this, but like idealism is another one. You see what I'm saying? But I feel like they all link, and I feel like it perhaps begins with this basis of the meta-realism and affirmation by negation and the modes of existence. And then once we do that, we can kind of look at these false dichotomies. And jam them together, not jam them together, but see where they apply.
I think that seemed to be the big lesson of the chapter, right?
Yeah,
like that was the big takeaway. Was the question is, well, it's about context, really. Like in any given disagreement, in what are the modes in which it applies. I just want to throw on that as I was reading it, I was starting to get kind of feel like really sort of pissed off with it. Like I was saying to Jermaine before we started that I don't know, like there's these lists of philosophers in there, and there's this, even the difference between, I've forgotten all of them, the various ologies, and they each mean different things, right? And there's, I don't know, I can't remember any of them. What's coming to me is etymology and cosmology, but they're the wrong ologies, right? And I don't know what the hell they mean, right? And like, how much time, effort, and energy do we need to be putting in? And I'm there reading, and I'm like, I've spent an hour and a half on this. I don't know how long Jason Storm spent on all of this shit, and it's like, what the fuck are we do? Like, so there was a part of me as I was reading this that was really leaning into that, like, this is all bullshit. Like, all of this is bullshit, right? And the level of effort needed to really kind of scan and map out the individual contexts for every individual thing, right? Like, it's really fucking hard work. And so that thing of going, oh yeah, spade is a spade, look, it's a spade, here it is, and leaving it there is really tempting, and so I just wanted to presence that, like, that just sort of general frustration with, and it happens a lot across the liminal web, happens a lot in metamodernism, it happens in this book, it happens across the academy. It's like, how deep and can I get in on this particular thing? How many big words can I use? How tight can I like map reality? And it's like, in the last discussion that we were having, we were talking about the chasm between specialization and obscurism, and needing to somehow sit in that chasm, right? And sometimes it felt to me like I was moving into this specialization mode, and it was really pissing me off. So I just wanted to raise that. Like, we were getting to, and And the thought of needing to do that level of specialization on every single thing, just like we can't do that. I can't.
Language
sociality is social.
Yeah, I can see. Maybe not even what we eradication. I don't think the level of canonization right now yeah, so we might have a scientific explanation of the cloud rather than a whole lot of this is where I made the point. Right. Fields outside certain things. When you get to say the sky, non-real Madonnas. Otherwise, it would have there's loads of action and there's ways in which this is a silly he argued very sharply. Let's see the rest of this critically marked it's a nice little simplification. Yeah. The lens I've used for is various there's something about this. For example, the classification of adverse or reality construction. Yeah, I get that. Philosophical accounts, the rest is mind dependent of the contrast behavior. So they thought these are okay, yeah. Materialism. I have no idea value about it's not going to be one thing reality you approach this in a different way and ask what is going to shout
I feel like this book is written for academics, which is not a bad thing, but it is a bit annoying. And at the same time, he is deconstructing and reconstructing what it means to be an academic as well.
Yes,
and I think that we're doing that as well. I know you're a professional, Ben, but I view this part as a scholarship, because we're not getting paid for this. We're doing this for our own fun. But attention is there. That's what I want to say. So, you might want to say something. We've only got 8 minutes.
something that you said earlier, Ben, about, or I'm not sure, I think it was you, about kind of uh, recognizing and in some sense maybe kind of the mountains, and the mountains where they are, the metaphorical things that we have to live in relation to, and not in this like abundance or domination thing. Um, that is it feels very related to there's some got to be some element of uncertainty. If you found out what everything is, then there would be no, in an epistemic pragmatic sense, like if you pushed past the boundaries of what is keeping us, then we would no longer be us, whether that's transhumanism sort of thing or dust. Like we're trying hard to do that right now as a species, but
Yeah.
but yeah, but that's, it just seems also just related to this the context thing, this infinite, learning the context thing, and the info economy thing. It's like, what would happen if we all just could we all just say that all the categories will just reset? Could we even in theory kind of do that? Um, could we, or is there just a much more complex kind of unfolding process that would get us there, that's not exactly going to look like that, but will untangle those binds kind of that are holding us here, right? In these sort of places where the biological needs are important, but then we have to pursue them through these bullshit political or kind of historical ways, right? That are maybe not quite as helpful to everyone else, or maybe even ourselves often.
Yeah.
Adopting this sort of stance of uncertainty more and more, and stepping back and trying to get a picture of the context. It's like that's kind of the move, I think, which it sounds like meta realism. It sounds like this sort of weird space where you accept that there's dance, there's music, and they're somehow the same two parts of the same thing, or there's realism, there's anti-realism, there's yeah, that's okay. That's yeah, but not sure if that's emphasizing or I've just opened a can of worms, or what I did there, but
no, I think this uncertainty thing is important. I think it's the same as, it's the same as me saying I know nothing. It's the same as Ben, I don't know anything. And I think it's almost especially because, let's be real, we're all specialists in some way. Well, I hope we're all specialists, at least in ourselves, right? At least on ourselves. But we also know that this is just one perspective. It's the same as an academy. Let's just say entrepreneur, let's just say lecturer, because we're in the same thing, and let's just say facilitator, yeah? Me, facilitator. We're all on our different camps, right? And it seems like they've got no, we can become kind of certain about the things that we're doing. But at the same time, we are very aware of the limitations of our perspective, me just being me and having my thing. And, so, have I got something on my face? I need your perspective to help me check myself, to help me come correct. And so I think this is kind of what he's pointing to, because, and the reason, one of the big things that maybe say this is because you're right, like for him to do this and go into all of these different bits like this, it's so much work. so much work. But at the same time, we're very lucky because what academia has done is like kind of a love letter towards just learning in general. We have all of these papers and people are having conversations and referring to each other. And and the point is, so we can see that we have to have another perspective but our own. Now, let's see, we have to have another perspective but our own group of people who are specialized in this thing, you know, and that's where the power comes. And I like to think that's what he's pointing to as well in the text, is that, you know, more collaboration between these academies is needed. That the academy is not this massive separate, they have all these classifications, but they're actually all part of this one body that is devoted to learning, devoted to enjoying learning and learning about humans and the human experience. In order to kind of accept that there are both modes of reality and modes of existence. And so what is real for you may not be as real for me, but it doesn't mean that it is not real for me, because it is real for you and we are in a relationship. So it is real for me by extension, you know, and the same things as existence, you know, just because something exists for you, but it doesn't exist for me, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that there's different modes here, and we just have to see why it exists for you and not for me, because it exists, you know, it exists for each of us, through us. So yeah.
No, good shit. We're about to run out of time again. Are you two up for coming back?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got there's something I'm drawn to say. So on the back of what Jermaine just said. So yeah. Cool. Right. See you soon.
I guess we'll
Yeah.
Cool.
In a minute. Okay. So am I okay to start? To jump in? Is that all right with it? Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So one of the things that came up for me, or with this, and with the kind of also my own being sort of pissed off with it, but also from what you were saying before, Jermaine, about what's the kind of driving force behind the various forms of friction within the academy. And so that, I suppose that is the question, like, what are the various driving forces? And again, at the risk of coming back to it, we're back to this notion of value and things that people value. And there's a certain amount of the debate which is perhaps performative. It's kind of, there's a part of it which is about you know, dominance, and often people would describe forms of conflict as generative, and they certainly.
I think we might have lost you for a second there, Ben.
Okay.
I think he's deep in thought. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we can hear you now, and
okay.
It seems to be in time.
Okay. Cool. Right. Okay, let's start again. So I was, so back to this, like, what are the things that create these debates? What's the underlying driver, motivator? And I don't know why I'm drawn to want to lean into this, but this notion of value and what it is that and there's something about friction which is, I think, exciting. I notice it happens a lot, say with products. It's happened across the liminal web in a number of ways. Somebody has some sort of notion of an idea, and then it's almost as if whatever their idea is can't seem to exist or can't hold itself up somehow unless the other things are negated. So and I don't know the degree to which that's a just a factor of reality, which is linked to exactly what we're talking about, right? Which is in order for the thing to be a thing, it has to not be a bunch of other things. Or that's something to do with the way that we work and operate, right? You know, I'm thinking about the excitement of friction and its value, you know, as you know, I'm thinking of jousting contests in medieval England or wherever, right? Like there's something about forms of performative warfare which are we seem to like them, and I don't know the degree to which we can end them, whether we should. The thing that capitalism is meant to do is turn that or forms of that into generative activity. In some ways it does do that. In other ways it doesn't. But there's something about that I think is also seeded at the bottom of this. It's like even Storm's critique of the mode of critique, right? So Storm saying like this is silly, right? That in and of itself is another display of this type of friction, right? And underpinning the sentiment of what you were saying before we've had all these technical difficulties, Jermaine, was like a kind of a ubiquitous love, right? Which I totally resonate with. Like, if we're going to be having disagreements, they may as well be over things that are meaningful, right? And it's going to lead somewhere. So that's another layer. Like, how do we know that we're doing the right? We're disagreeing in the right ways, you know? I just wanted to throw that into the middle and see what people did with it.
Something that came up for me while you're talking, sorry, is just the element of play. The jousting and this simulated warfare between academic branches is play, and how important play is, and how actually, you know, there are rules to play as well. I'm thinking about in the animal kingdom with dogs. I'm thinking about a Siberian tiger meeting an Indian tiger, which is massive, and the Indian tiger will like and back, you know, and like say, yo, you can take my throat. I'm not a threat to you, you know. And yeah, and it's kind of this playfulness also. Yeah, not I wouldn't say submission is I'll lead. I'm taking your lead. I'm taking your lead, big cat. You know. But also when dogs will play and nip each other, and one goes too much, then you know, then the other one will, you know, and then the other one, and then you know, and like kind of like, no, I didn't, you know. You know, it's kind of an apology, bro. And I think it's important, but I think sincere play is very important. I mean, sincere play. And when you want to play seriously, for instance, boxing, when I used to box in the gym, you know, and that play fighting, but we're doing it seriously. So we're not trying to hurt each other, but we're trying to make sure that, you know, we get better and we punch the other person. You know, you know, you tend to hit the other person. You don't intend to do serious damage, but you know it's going to hurt them by punching them. But this is part of the play, and it's about So some of the jams that I do, we use them as a dojo. So we have fun here, but we also want to get better each time, and we want to try hard here, so that when we go out into the real world and you're playing a gig, you know, and someone says boo, you can be like ding, 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 whatever. You know what I mean? And so yeah. Play.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, like a throwing. Yeah, that's great. Have you got anything, Brock, that's coming up?
Well, play is like walking this it's very natural for us to recognize that in Jermaine's performance right there of the dog and the cat, the big tiger, this, of these sort of, again, these sort of following, leading kind of trading back and forth things. And then we look at ourselves in some of these contexts where it's hard to tell. Are they jousting to find who's the best jouster, or somebody trying to impale somebody else here? We're not really sure all the time.
Yeah.
When things get, high stakes, or yeah. And yeah, I don't know. That's there's a difficulty, I guess, with that. Just trying to stay in that play or serious play, and still move through this, like, trying to answer this question, which is something you said earlier, Ben, about these, that specifically in the liminal web, about kind of ideas or theories or whatever popping up that maybe in some sense depend on other things being not true, or being invalidated or negated. That's just sticky. It's just like hard for us to get around those edges right now. And but yeah, we've definitely got to figure out how to do that, and maybe metamodernism is a path through there. I think fundamentally that, answering that question though, of like, is this a good discussion? Not this one, but just in general, the general question. It's like, there is this sort of computational irreducibility, is the word that is loved by some and hated by so many. But it's part of a theory from Stephen Wolfram, originally, I guess. But it's explicated in different ways through across complexity science, kind of instantiation. So we kind of can't know fully or be sure about that or anything. If we could know, then why have the conversation at all? Because we already know what the outcome is, maybe, right? So there's a tension there between that serious play thing. How do we do that? And is this a, like, conversation or any other social thing or collective sort of engagement, being in relation to each other? How do we figure that out? Is this a good relationship is this a good thing to do? Is this going to be playful, serious play, or are we going to go somewhere real dark in 20 years from this, right? Seems to be the 20th century kind of question, that if we could have answered that better there, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad,
right,
in so many different ways.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if either of you have got a memory from childhood, maybe, of starting with some rough and tumble play with somebody, and then at some point, and you're not always sure when, there's a flip, and in that flip, all of a sudden, this is a real fucking fight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got a memory, and I only found out that it was a real fight like 20 years after, when the kid took a swing at me in the pub.
Right.
Yeah. And then someone was like, "Yeah, I remember you had that fight on the field." I was like, "No, I was just messing about." And he was like, No, he wasn't messing about. And yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's something about that, isn't there? That when is the thing serious play? When is it just serious? Right. like, and how do we define that moment of the switch, or the, like, what's that little nugget of, like, when do we know this is serious or not, you know? And I have memories in the past of my own that are like that, but I also witness it in my two. I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I notice it between them two. Like, they're playing some game where I don't know, they're fighting dragons and also attacking each other or something, and something's going on, and then all of a sudden there's a shout, and it's like, it's serious now, and then one of the grown-ups has got to go and get involved and sort of sort it out. You know, there's that. It's trying to allow for the productive, joyful, enjoyable, playful stuff that might be a bit tactile, but also noticing the point at which it's gone too far, and then knowing what to do to remedy that. So yeah, I
wonder what emotions come up. You mentioned joy. I wonder if, you know, that moment when it is about to change is an action has been done, which means I might lose this, and so losing comes into it, and or fear that I might lose, but also if it's a player, fear that I might get hurt, you know, or fear that my dinosaur is gonna die, you know, if you want to put it that way, you know, my idea is gonna die.
Yeah.
And then that brings a, well, I have to bring it back to scarcity. It brings a scarcity mindset to it. It's like, oh no, then it's like then a decision has to be made, a quick decision that doesn't, you know, yeah.
Comes back to the dominance thing, or the capacity thing, or the mastery thing. Kind of slowly regressing here to something that's closer to serious play there. If you don't have in that boxing ring, you're getting better, you're developing a capacity, some capacity to recognize conflict of a kind, and have some ability to, like, diffuse it, whether that's with a punch, okay, it's over, or that you can, you know, kind of get in somebody's way, kind of, and slowly diffuse the situation. Neither recommended, but
what is it that's making you say that? Because that's interesting. Neither recommended. There's something in you that was like, no, I shouldn't. There was something in you at that moment that was like, no, I shouldn't.
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you too. I was going to say most of my memories of this sort of serious play spillover are brother kind of familial sort of things, where it just went one Lego or whatever too far, and it didn't matter at all, and you know, it didn't matter in the moment, and it didn't matter 5 minutes later after, you know, things had been resolved. But it really mattered, you know, to us at the time, right? And so there's that kind of a spillover where, I guess what I'm saying is that learning that, where those boundaries are, there's bound to be that kind of learning, obviously for adolescents, kids, but even for adults, you know, in the academy, trying to figure out where the boundaries are. However, I think my clearest memory of something like this had in a sports kind of team context. Got to finish this particular drill sort of thing, and it's just a team camaraderie thing of kind of, and then practice is over. And so whoever finishes first is, I don't know, first. And I jumped up to go do it, kind of very aggressively, and somebody took it as this sort of like I was about to do that. You know, kind of took it from me or something. And just very high, very aggressive. Again, with just it's like football and kind of uh, these some of these other kind of very aggressive sports. Everyone plays one or two of these in this group, sort of thing. And this guy punches me in the mouth, and I looked up at him. I was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna either tackle you, and we're about to roll down this hill and start throwing fists, or um." I think I'm done with practice today.
Yeah.
and and so after he's like, I don't know what I'm sorry, so I guess what I'm saying is that there's this like preemptive or like before the thing gets too out of hand way to kind of bring it back to serious play or play. And there's also this after the fact sort of thing of like, okay, that's the boundary. So we can keep going, or we can find a way back. And we're just generally not very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are getting, well, certainly some people getting better at it. Pockets of humanity are getting better at it, but it's hard to, without that kind of, again, this adolescence seeking out almost through play, or in the serious boxing, of like seeking out, with intention, the conflict on a small scale, to know, oh, that's where the boundary is. It's hard to, yeah. It's just, yeah, that's
Yeah,
hard
you're saying, yeah,
to dis
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard for us to enjoy the conversation.
when is the lag? We don't know. We just have to reach that conflict. And, yeah, there we go. Back.
There's something I just want to speak on that you said about maybe to tie everything up that's about the need to negate everything. This is something definitely in the Metamodernism project, and yeah, something I probably should look at. I do want to point out that in the 2022 paper on Metamodernism education, one of the tenets of Metamodernism in there was the need to accept different modes of Metamodernism and different degrees of Metamodernism. Essentially saying, okay, if Metamodernism is about hierarchy, we do need some kind of awareness of the hierarchical approach to metamodernity. So this is like it's not that something is or isn't metamodern. It's a how metamodern is it? It's not that something is or isn't right. It's to what extent is it right? It's in the same way. It's not is or isn't it acceptable for me to punch someone in the face. It's what context is it acceptable to punch someone in the face? Because there are contexts where it is needed to punch somebody in the face. Very rare, fortunately, but there are. If someone's coming at someone you love and they're doing something really bad and you need to stop them from doing it, you're going to have to use violence to stop them from doing it. That's kind of just so it's about, yeah. And I feel this is kind of perhaps this needs to be looked at in terms of just all of the other bits of the foundations that we were talking about, all the ontologies and etymologies and epistemologies and transcendentalism and idealism and stuff. It's not, well, it is or it isn't. It's what degree is this, and how can we see it as both, and how can we see it as
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also just the the piece that you drew and brought for us, this where we started with, it's like if you have a theory that has no criticism, then what is, I don't know, if is that a theory? I mean, I don't, maybe, but it's not anything that's going to get any kind of attention or use or anything like that. So it's almost like there's this need to have, if you have a theory that has no holes in it, what that's not realistic. That's the idealism, or some other such thing that's not, doesn't really comport itself to reality in some way.
That means we should always be willing to share our ideas in the hope that they will be critiqued, digested and critiqued, and so that we can learn where the holes are in our ideas, and so that, and I guess this is a part of play. This is this conceptual play fighting, almost, in that we're trying to understand the world better, and the only way we can do that is by with ideas, and then critiquing the ideas, and then getting on people's perspectives on that as well.
Yeah. There's something about with boxing, obviously there's a framework around it. There's something about the placeholder that's put around the activity that helps us kind of see the context, or helps set up the context that means certain forms of disagreement are okay. And I suppose this is it, right? If you feel like your entire field is falling apart, then there's something quite existential about, there could be something quite existential about that, which is so maybe if the academy was more, could help to create the right conditions around that as a possibility. Again, which feeds back into the way that it's funded, the way that it's
right,
the way that it's what the contracts look like that you sign when you become an academic, all of that. There's a lot of kind of ancillary stuff that's not linked to the work itself, but's linked to setting up the person in the right frame of mind so that they might engage with the work in a truly constructive way.
I think that does kind of segue onto the next chapter quite nicely. The next chapter is on process social ontology. It begins with I just have to look, not doing this on memory. It begins with the end of art and the end of religion, which is very interesting, and then it continues on with types of critique. And it is the processes that we have used to, socially orientated to like said, okay, this is what academia is, and so that's what we're going to explore next, hopefully, is what the processes are that led to, maybe that's how we can apply it, so we can see what are these processes, why have we shaped it like we have, and what can we do better, maybe, I don't know, because I can't remember the chapter.
As I've been arguing here, there are many different modes of being real or unreal depending. added feature that counts as social more people are seeing the same thing. There's an assumption
chapter would seem that
realism
realism
moreover, as discussed below,
on one hand it seems absurd to question the reality of reality might not be a realist interpretation of realism whereby we step out of
wearing skins occupying one view
when realism becomes anti-realism, transcend both alignment and metamodernism. In this respect, the work of realism is standing high, tolerant of all both sides of that duality. So talking here about socially
registered being modern tools, being a realist about religion in some way.
Objective for the researcher. What might be an idealist or neo-constitutionalist
say that a rock exists and the Catholic Church exists. Real and existing not real entities that are real and vary from
education is what would still be here all day. And that's no, that wall there.
The ozone layer would also be causally
Stand in front of the train, let the train hit you, and then see if
causally mind dependent.
Okay, yeah, no, I get it now. I was
Say that
thinking.
Hello. Is mind dependent.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you? Good. Let me just turn this off.